Welcome back to Cultivating Conversations, where, as always, we celebrate the women that are fueling mortgage transformation. And our session is presented by Mortgage Innovators and Indecomm. I'm your host, Joy Gilpin. I'm the Vice President of Automation and Client Success at Indecomm. And I'm so excited again to be with you all because our goal together for our time is to really explore these inspiring journeys of female trailblazers who are shaping the present and future landscapes of the mortgage industry. They're doing that through their own professional impacts and experience, their practical innovations, and in that constant pursuit of improvement. And we thought it would be cool to get together once in a while and talk through these things because each of our guests is sharing their stories and their insights along with their inspiration and motivation to really keep cultivating and tending the needs not only of this industry, but the borrowers that we serve. So if you're here for some inspiration, looking for some actionable strategies, lessons learned, or maybe you're just curious about the evolving mortgage banking landscape, no matter what brought you to the table, we've got something here for you because all we're going to do today is celebrate the journeys and achievements of special ladies in the mortgage industry that are making changes through these cultivating conversations together. So it's with that goal in mind, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Rekha Siddani, who is the Senior Vice President of Retail Credit Operations at AmeriHome Mortgage. Rekha is a 20-plus year mortgage industry leader. She supports credit, operations, channel management, and of course, underwriting. She's a leader, but what I think I admire most about Rekha is that she's really just a skilled practitioner, razor sharp. She's responsible for driving retail credit operations, technology adoption and implementations, workflow efficiencies. On top of that, she has her master's degrees in both business administration and financial management and accounting. So in other words, she is a highly educated, bona fide badass. And I have had the good fortune to work with Rekha, and she is not only a powerhouse professionally, but she's just straight up inspiring. She's got this really great energy that says, let's get busy. And she's just so generous with her time and her knowledge. And so I'm excited. Welcome, Rekha. It's so great to be together today.
Thank you, Joy. I'm very happy and excited to be here.
Me too. So you guys, as a little peek behind the curtain, Rekha and I had a chance to catch up a few weeks ago, kind of in advance of our session. So I have been chomping at the bit to get into our conversation today. So I love to start kind of at the beginning, Rekha, especially for a young mortgage professional or kind of somebody that's growing their expertise. When you were younger, right, starting back in the beginning, is this what you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you have big aspirations to be the Senior Vice President of Retail Credit Operations for a major lender?
Not at all. Nobody graduates from college wanted to enter into the mortgage banking industry or want to become an underwriter or an appraiser.
Nobody even knows what it is.
Exactly. It's not even a curriculum that's covered. Maybe a little bit of it when somebody's doing the business administration or, real estate. But this is not a territory where you learn from the school, college, ground up. But the good thing about this is it all goes back to the basics. So that's why no matter which background you're from, if you have common sense, you will really start thriving in mortgage industry. So I came from accounting and finance background, and then I was looking for a role and I wasn't getting any, or the minimum wage was too low for the entry level accounting. So the data entry position at a mortgage company opened up, and I'm like, you know what? Until I find my dream job, I'm just gonna play by ear, and I'm just gonna do what I do.
Guys, let's pause Rekha for a minute there because I want to stop for a second. She's kind of breezily putting out like, I thought I would pick this up. But Rekha, you had newly arrived in the United States. Like yes. You didn't start out like post-collegiate here in the US, like fully immersed in financial practices within the United States. So you came to the United States looking for something in accounting, right? So how did you jump from accounting, if that was your plan, to the mortgage space? Just that's what was there, right?
Yeah. I came to United States and I already had all this accounting background and knowledge. And then I went to one of the contracting companies and said, this is my resume. This is all my background. I got tested on it, interviewed on it. And they're like, as soon as we have a position in accounting, we'll let you know. I'm like, in the meantime, is there anything I can do? Are there any other jobs that I could possibly fill in? Because I don't like to sit idle and I need to always keep myself engaged. And that's how my brain works.
So
So
I think Rekha's first amazing jewel that she has dropped like a pearl into this conversation is that the opportunity may not look the way you expect it to when it arrives, but to take action is better than to take no action.
exactly. And that's how it started is I joined at Countrywide as a data entry person. And once I started doing that, back then I didn't know what mortgage means, how people go about getting a loan to buy properties or houses, residential properties, none of that. So I was trained on what the documents were. So that's good practice. And then after that, I started doing data entry, starting from the loan application, the 1003 form. And then what does the note mean? What does the deed of trust mean? What does the HUD-1 mean? Good faith estimate means all of that. Once I started doing data entry, I started asking what those documents were, what the data means. And then whenever I found inconsistencies and everything, I used to raise my hand. Something seems off on this one. This
Was
doesn't
that always easy
translate
to
well
do,
to
to
the
kind
other
of throw the
document.
flag and be like, hey,
Yeah. So I was paying attention to details, which is a skill set that underwriters require. Once I started doing that, my managers noticed that. Even though I was a contractor temp, they were like, you're very smart. You're paying attention to details like an underwriter should. We do have some training classes and boot camp that we can put you through. This is what it's going to look like. And they're like, are you interested? I reached out
second
to,
time opportunity came knocking and Rekha was like, yes, please come on in.
exactly. It was uncomfortable. It's beyond my skill set. It was going to push the boundaries, but I took it as a challenge. I really need to test myself to see if I'm going to be the right fit for this. And that's how we take our chances and try to really learn. And once I got the role, I went through the training. Do you think somebody can become and learn underwriting in
In
2 months?
6-week program?
No, no, not at all. So that's when, I really wanted to invest. The more I learned about underwriting, the more it piqued my curiosity. I loved going into the details. So what I did was go to the libraries back then, 2001, 2002, guys. There was no internet where I could just Google.
There was no
Definitely no
groupthink.
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
How do you underwrite a loan? So I went to libraries, spent my weekends learning more on real estate. How is this? What is that process look like? So I started building my own knowledge. And at that time, the other leadership that I was working around with, they were mentoring. So anytime you have other leaders that are willing to share their knowledge and wealth, take advantage of that because that is what really helped me learn and grow faster.
Guys, I think we should pause for a few amazing observations from that little tale of opportunity that Rekha shared with us. Because one, it was not, I would say, the most glamorous job to start with, right? You weren't like, I'm living for this excitement of data entry. But in the beginning, it's the beginning. So for all you ladies and gentlemen that are eyeballing roles that look and sound and feel a lot like Rekha's, recognize that if she were dropped into the chair she sits in now, then before she had acquired this expertise and exposure, she wouldn't be qualified to do it. So there is not a shortcut for the kind of acquisition of experience. You get it by doing it. And the better you do it, people will pay attention. But the other thing Rekha said that I think is so important, when training, education, mentorship, guidance is offered, pick that stuff up. It's like gifts from the sky. And in the process, right, Rekha, you talked about learning to kind of press yourself. Did you have feelings of shyness when you were kind of growing your role in this space, right? You've transitioned now from newcomer into kind of the culture as well as the sort of industry, and you've now been identified as somebody that's got rising star potential. But there were still challenges, right, in terms of fully finding your footing.
Lots of it. And growing up, I grew up in India. So back home, I grew up in a very Orthodox family. So girls are not allowed to raise their voices, look anybody in the eye. They almost have to leave the house going to the school with their head down, and then you come back home and then raise your head again. That's the only time. Did not talk to anybody. So that's how I was raised, very protected. And suddenly I came to a different country, and I was, the first few months, or I want to say the first couple of years, it was pretty challenging. I was an underwriter, but I was required to talk to processors or operations, and I was required to talk to loan officers, communicate on their decline. So I really had to get out of my shell, and it was really uncomfortable. But
how'd you do it?
Challenge yourself. Everybody else is doing it. Why can't I do it? What's wrong?
Why can't I? Well, if not me, then who?
Exactly. So that's the power that's within ourselves that we don't really push or explore, because opportunities they come by and go really quick. If you don't grab them at the right moment, no matter how uncomfortable it is, we lose it. And time is of the essence, and there's too much competition in this industry. So those are some of the things I learned as I made my career here.
Let us stop again, because Rekha just throwing them out right and left. The opportunities come by swiftly. And as underwriters, operations folks, sometimes snap decisions become less and less common, right? Because the job doesn't lend itself to making snap decisions. But Rekha is 100% right. As you are working files, that is a great philosophy. When you are working your personal brand and trying to grow your role and expand your footprint in the market space, sometimes you got to just take it and ride it, because more is certainly lost to indecision than poor decision. So, I think what Rekha is really telling us is the same experience I've had, which is there isn't a linear path to the office, to the title, to the gig that you ultimately are trying to get to. But there's all these little opportunities that come up, and the more open to opportunity we all are, the stronger our overall bench of talent becomes, right? We just have that much more to draw from. So Rekha, I mean, that's a lot that you were talking about overcoming, coming to a new culture, a new country, also overcoming sort of familial and cultural expectations and trying to kind of reassert how that configuration looks in this new environment. Were you able to do that through, just finding your voice? Did you take any classes? Did you focus your efforts in any one direction? Did you connect with a mentor or somebody that really helped you build? Like, what was the way that you were able to do it?
Most of my way has been with mentors. My mentors were already women leaders. Some of them are also men leaders. However, I got almost equal wealth of knowledge. And thankfully, where I worked, there wasn't as much discrimination against women. So if you're sharp, if you're willing to learn, if you're hungry to grow, and you are participating in a lot of projects and decision making and helping the managers, they are looking at it. Other leaders are always observing and noticing who's actually contributing towards the company. And that's how they're picking their next leader.
The ones
Who
that they
are
bring
others
along with them.
listening to?
How
Yeah,
often do you find that's the case too, Rekha, as you grow your role, that people you've worked with along the way, when now you're the hiring manager, you're thinking back to those people that you really loved working with, that you knew that were reliable, that you knew had that spark, could really think about problems in a new way, and you look to bring them with you.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into our kind of best tips and tricks, I do want to just ask your thoughts, because in our first conversation, we did kind of touch on this, and I just think it's such an important piece. You know, guys, own your process. Rekha mentioned, investing in yourself. She used some programs too that helped her grow her leadership voice, right? So Rekha was really sort of self-reflective, right? She's already talked to us about several ways that she felt like she needed to kind of shore up her strong box. And then she went out and found those tips. So Rekha, talk to us a little bit about some of the programs that you have found particular value in.
So I did the Mortgage Bankers Association certified residential underwriting. So that's way back when I, after a couple of years into my underwriting experience. After that,
Lisa
I
Weaver.
also did the California Mortgage Bankers Association Future Leaders Program. And that was also very helpful because you are working towards some of your leadership skills like, effective communication, a little bit of emotional intelligence, the strategic and big picture thinking, and collaboration. So you
And
are working with,
networking.
yes, and you're working with this outside other companies. These are not same coworkers that you work with. So again, how do you collaborate with an individual? Doesn't matter where they work, who they work with, who they are, irrespective of, teaches you to really work together and then come with solutions for whatever were the hot topics. So that was also very, very helpful to me.
I love that. Okay, so I don't want to run out of time before we talk a little bit about your work at AmeriHome. And I know from working with you on an automation deployment that you and your team have driven a variety of different types of innovation and system enhancements over the years, and that perhaps you drew from some of your early professional experiences to get those things done. So just for the general audience's benefit, what are you looking for these days in the way of automation?
My goal is really to automate some of the most common tasks that underwriters do today. So underwriting function is one function where there's a lot of opportunity because there's a lot of manual work, a lot of stare and compare, and also room for errors. So if we could identify documentation recognitions that are smart, and also, so income automation is something we've already implemented with, and we started with the complex one, the most complex one, which is the tax returns, thanks to Income Genius coming up with
Oh,
that
that's ours.
product.
Shout out. Thanks.
So we started using Income Genius. So now we wanted to move into also automating the asset calculations, anything that can read the credit history. So those are all the areas that we are looking into. And a lot of our loan review process in the correspondent is also now being handled in, like, we're cutting down the entire process into smaller chunks. That way, wherever we can automate or outsource, we're able to do it and cut the overall loan review costs, because eventually these costs are translating to the borrower and it's
And it's
not really
expensive.
helping. No.
Those cost per loan is expensive.
Yes. The cost for loans are very, very expensive, and we need to move to a different direction. And we are already taking, when I say we, the big
The
mortgage
business,
industry
the
is
whole,
already
all
shifting
of
in
us
the right
guys.
direction.
Here's, I think, what I find most compelling about that sort of perspective from Rekha is she is a, what do they say? dyed in the wool, right? She's really grew up in credit. So she is an underwriter. She is not a tech person that it has some underwriting exposure. She is a true blue underwriter, had started from documents and data entry, and she is telling us the future of the business is in balancing the benefits of automation and the expertise of our talent, and finding ways to reduce redundant touches so that we get the highest and best use from our talent, and we're less bound by the fluctuation and the pendulum swing of volume predicated on rates and industry conditions. So again, I love all of that, Rekha. And so one piece that I do want to talk about before we get into our favorite tips and tricks, innovation in and of itself really does require focus. So I think from a practical perspective, how do you help drill down between like actual business requirements and established practices? Because sometimes people just have a hard time letting go of what's comfortable.
Yep. As long as your team is involved from the ground up in the discussions on what it is that we want. So for me, it's all about, fostering the teamwork, because doesn't matter what we implement as a leadership from an automation perspective, if your team doesn't adopt it, we will not see, and you cannot force them to adopt it. So my part has always been being transparent on the communication, what it is that we are working towards, establishing that common goal, making sure that we want to make the business scalable. We really want some of these processes where the underwriters really are just clicking buttons or doing something. We want to move that. So when I communicate that we really are trying to finding this balance of risk and automation and trying to get them married, they are willing to change. They are able to adopt and embrace the technology. But there will be that early adoption resistance, but transparency, meaning any automation that we adopt should clearly show them how the decisions
You got to be able to
being
get
made.
in and look under the hood and know why it did.
Exactly.
Yes.
If
Something
they
that
can't
an
see that,
underwriter can rely on and grab onto. Yeah.
exactly. If they can't see it, they're
How do
not
I
going to
know?
trust it.
I got to double check. If I can't see it, I got to double check. Even if I can see it, sometimes I got to double check.
Exactly. It's my name going on the loan.
I
So
know,
it doesn't
right? And
have
let us not minimize that. That's a real thing. Like I've been an underwriter and that is for real. It's no different than these conversations. It's my name that's on it, right? So we all really care about what we're going to put our name on. And
exactly.
so I think what's really compelling there, Rekha, is that you recognize that and you have that same expectation from any automation, any innovation, any partnership, any system that you integrate with. That is the first and primary objective of everything, right? Is that it has to be transparent and it has to be consistent.
Yeah.
Love
That's
it.
when the users start trusting it, and adoption will be a piece of cake.
It's true. Okay, Rekha, we have just a few minutes left, and I just know that most of the ladies that support mortgage technology or sit in leadership roles, they came, like you, from frontline operations spaces and grew those roles throughout their career. And so that gives us lots of opportunity for lessons learned and considerations that we could maybe share for folks that are perhaps earlier in their career and they're really trying to acquire that experience and grow their domain knowledge. So Rekha, what are one or two of your best tips as you reflect on your career and not only where you've been, but where you continue to go? Because I know your career trajectory continues to move forward. What would you leave folks with as food for thought?
Food for thought is always ask why. Because if we don't ask why, those old processes or stale processes never change.
That's true.
For processes and for to be evolved, it needs to be, somebody has to ask those questions, understand the ins and outs of a process. Don't just learn a process that goes from point A to point B. Why does it have to go from point A to point B?
That's right.
Are there any other routes to go?
Why does it have to go back to this person twice?
Exactly.
Why are we touching this more than once? Just why? And if there's a legitimate business reason, great.
lesson learned that, okay,
Lesson
this is
learned.
what
But
happens, but
asking
maybe
why is
uh-huh.
a positive thing, and people can get defensive. So don't be afraid to continue to ask why. Sometimes people feel like you're up in their kitchen trying to, catch them doing something. But when you're legitimately just trying to understand, there's real power there.
There is power.
I
And
love that.
sometimes I use this with my teams too, the Darwin's evolution. So I'm like, if we always try to stay the same, we'll never evolve into the next, and we will not go to the future more developed and all that. So all of our processes need to constantly be evolved. We need to be as agile as possible to the changing needs of the customer, the market conditions, all of that. So you cannot marry a process and say that, hey, this is how we're going to do things forever.
That's
Because
right.
if everybody
Who
else
knows?
is changing, you don't want to be the last one. And we should always think of what it is that we can do to improve, what it is that we can do to improve, because we are only as good as today.
And you don't have to have the entire answer baked out to have the idea, right?
Yeah.
You can have the outcome and not know the how yet, but if you know the why, if you have an objective or goal and questions that you can continue to drill down into, there's opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one of mine.
Mhm.
It kind of ties into what you were saying, Rekha, and it is really to just find your people, build your tribe, build your network. This career is a marathon. And the only way I know to get through the ups and downs, and there are, right? I mean, there are ups and downs. Lots of folks that we know and care about and think very highly of and are excellent at what they do are in the midst of some downs.
Yeah.
So you really do need to have that core group of people that you can rely on for support, for guidance, that you can ask a question to and get a legitimate answer, that you can bounce ideas off of. Especially as women, sometimes we worry about sounding stupid or having the wrong idea or asking a question that's already been answered. Don't worry about that. Just ask.
Exactly.
Because
I totally
if you
agree.
have the question, someone else has the question.
Mhm.
And if they don't, good for you, because you might have beat them to the punch, right? There's a healthy level of competition out there for all of us. And what do they say? Something favors the bold. Opportunity favors the bold, right? But
Yep.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
guys. I think that's a good place to stop. On behalf of Mortgage Innovators and Indecomm, Rekha, thank you so much for sharing your time and your story and your expertise with us. I would like to thank all of you guys for sharing your time with us as well. And from all of us here at Cultivating Conversations, we always wish you the very best in your adventures, and we'll see you next time. Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
so much, Joy. Bye.
Bye.